Good morning, lords and ladies. Just getting cranked up here. Going to be waiting for Judah. He should be joining us shortly. Let me know if everything in the stream is okay. Got a long essay this morning. It's going to be a pretty stream of consciousness-y Ford rant. We'll see if makes any sense. I wrote it this morning too. So we'll see if it is at all coherent, or if it's another middle-brow Alex Jones rant. Let's hope not. We've had surf this week. Tropical Storm Barry. If you're the praying or meditating or whatever type, and you think that has power, think about Louisiana. They're going to get dumped on a lot of rain. I mean, we've gotten rain over here, and we're not even in the path. But we've gotten quite a bit of surf off of it, even though it's been a total mess. It's like a washing machine out there. But we Gulf Coast surfers take what we can get. Beggars can't be choosers. I've got the most Facebook interactions I've seen in like a year. Oh, I hear a noise.
You hear nothing.
Wow. We're on time this morning. What's happening?
How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How have you been? You've been traveling some, huh?
Yes. You're about to do the same.
I am. I'm going to be out of town for a week. I quit my job yesterday. Man,
Boom!
feeling good. Feeling good. I got to surf after. Oh, it's just like the best day in like 5 years. 5 years. Oh, man. Felt so good. Yeah, I mean, there's always the hangover after the good feeling. No money's coming in. I've got a job lined up afterwards. Suck the dregs out of my. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what's amazing?
What's that?
Like getting on with you, hearing you do that, and turning on Facebook and hearing you do it simultaneously 2 seconds later.
It's like a new art form. The new DJ is just like lag. It's just utilizing lag online for artistic purposes.
Well, there's like a moment there where like I can't tell who's who.
Which one is real and which one's leading the way and which one's following.
Yeah.
Oh man, alive. Oh man, there are people showing up. I mean, the chat is not integrating with Doohickamabob. Restream. Hold on, let me switch this so I can see the people in the Facebook chat.
Have to see the people.
The people in the Facebook chat. Let's see the people in the Facebook chat. Whoa, some weird stuff happened here. Okay.
Uh-oh, what happened?
It's just like a video card problem. All right, I see. Hello, Vishnu. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Vishnu. More of the Florida content. Yeah. Florida man. Happening.
I saw that.
You see that old? How far is Panama City Beach from Orlando? If you're watching this, you'll hear this.
You said 5 hours, right?
About 5 hours, yeah. 5 hours from Panama City Beach to Orlando. It's quite a ways. I mean, not quite a ways. It's not that far. Yeah, we'll wait for a few more people to join in to the festivities. I'm trying to see if it's working on Twitter. It looks like it's working. I wonder how. I'm not really sure how Periscope actually works. I haven't really. Let's check it. Let's check it. Got like 8 different things running. Okay. Testing. Here, I'll see if it shows up in the restream. Testing. Lag for alt, as always. Yeah, Gyro, the first person in the chat. So you start out today's essay, actually. We had a pretty interesting conversation last week. Mm-hmm. So it starts with a little deal from Gyro. Hold on, I'm trying to think about something.
All right.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Let me copy that. And I'll put it in here. This is the essay for the week. Oh, it just disappeared from my chat. I put it in the chat and it disappeared. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
It's weird. It's not like, what's it doing? It's like my chat message. Chat. It's not showing up in my restream chat. That is weird. I might not be able to respond to people through restream. They said they were having some problems. All right, I'm going to dive in. You ready for the essay?
Ready and Roger.
You're looking shaved up, haircutted up. You're looking like all clean cut.
Well, what happens is I always like grow everything out to see my family.
Mm-hmm.
I have this weird family that appreciates beards and long hair.
Right.
And so after I go hang out with them, have a good time, be my, burly self there, I usually come home and clean up.
Gotcha.
Be my self here.
All right. Well, I'm going to dive into the essay here. I've put it in the descriptions for most of these streaming platforms. It is not showing up through the other thing. I'll put it in Twitch. And let's see if I've got YouTube. I think I got YouTube in a tab somewhere. Let me do that real quick. Too many windows. Let me do that real quick. Oh, now I'm hearing myself. Lag. All right.
I hate echo.
Okay. So here we go. I'm going to do this thing. In the chat last week, longtime viewer Gyro said this: maybe the over-ambitiousness to bring capsizing changes is the root fault in us. Maybe nano grassroots changes are enough for an individual, and in accumulation, they might be a big change. Keep Gyro's quote in mind. He's Mango Unchained on Twitter if you want to follow him. I'm going to do a little trip down memory lane through some fiction stuff. So keep Gyro's quote in mind. In Jurassic Park, Ian Malcolm talks about chaos theory and the shorthand, the butterfly effect. A butterfly could flap its wings in Peking, and in Central Park you get rain instead of sunshine. With Jurassic Park, Michael Crichton used Ian Malcolm as a kind of Greek chorus to speak truth to short-sighted power structures who are so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Chaos theory in the book is an almost conservative force, calling the innovative entrepreneur to be responsible and proactive instead of plunging humanity into another precipitous fall into a new hell of our own making. In the book, one of the more mundane examples of this is a shadow that falls across Alan Grant's face while he's lying in bed. It was my intent here to read it, but I forgot to get the book with me. So I'll retell the story roughly. In the visitor center, Alan Branch has one of the penthouse sort of locations for his room, and he falls asleep, and I think he's waking up with the morning sun, and there's a shadow, like the sun hits him, but this shadow hits his eyes, and he looks up, and there's these steel girders they've put in place because they didn't design the visitor center properly. The weight of the glass was showing signs that it might break, which wouldn't be too good for people sleeping in that room. So they installed these steel girders to better support the system. And it's just showing this lack of foresight that the whole book is about. It's about chaos theory, that this tiny little crack in the foundation of your ideology or your mission statement will result in a giant fissure later on down the road. And this, Grand Canyon is going to start with this just little tiny stream. And chaos theory is Michael Crichton's way of speaking truth to short-sighted power structures. Lack of foresight, this is Crichton's big warning. unintended consequences. When we make a new technological venture, are we really thinking through the ramifications? Are our designs sufficiently resilient to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? Have we thought through how the minefield of competing milieus will react and appropriate this new development in mainstream society? If Murphy's Law rears its ugly head, will there be disastrous consequences that put innocent bystanders' lives at stake? It's a tale as old as tale itself, Prometheus and Epimetheus, forethought and afterthought. Having worked in various institutions and industries, I can say with certainty that in our fast-paced era, forethought is not a highly prized attribute. As we embark on this journey of self-improvement and individuation into this ocean of possibility, we cannot afford to be flippant and perfunctory anymore. There's too much at stake. Jurassic Park is a metaphor, but it is most certainly prophetic. But the converse of the butterfly effect is there, and it is imbued with promise. The leverage the least, last, and lost have in our current era of instantaneous communication cannot be overstated. World leaders are elected by meme makers. Brand loyalty at a monumental level has been tapped into by truly rogue radicals like Notch with Minecraft, Toby Fox with Undertale, and the brothers Chaps with Homestar Runner. We do not need to wait for Godot, the second coming, or the perfect president. The time to act is now. The tools are at our disposal to evolve a better world as we painstakingly conserve the legacy of all that has come before, and that includes our natural world, not only our cultural and technological achievements. So how can we be the butterfly effect in a positive way? How can we leverage chaos theory for order and not plunge us headlong into a further descent into Sisyphusian horror? How can we institute order without forcing people into a straitjacketing uniformity that suffocates people at the edges? This is why I want to try to rethink how we handle mission statements, goal setting, and evaluation of how we live up to the goals and mission. If the mission is too greedy and short-sighted, someone will feel the pain. The customer and the employee will be the first to feel the pain. If the mission is too idealistic and vague, evaluation will be impossible. If the mission is too intransigent, it will not stand up to reality, and you'll be treading water as the river carries you along, and all you can do is react. My intent here is to serve as a descriptive science experiment, not a prescriptive self-help program. My hypothesis is that individual human beings can offer creative and responsible solutions to the clown world milieu we find ourselves in, and we don't need permission from traditional centrally controlled Wizards of Oz to offer these contributions. My attempt is to test this hypothesis in action in my life, work, and play. In order to do this, I need a better bespoke flowchart of my life that manages to layer multiple seemingly disparate goals in activities that are productive, creative, restful, and meditative. Activities and hobbies or pastimes that are constructive, collaborative, and creative, not just entertaining, consumptive, and recreational. And as you witness my failures, recalibrations, and hopefully successes, that you'll see ways to apply these lessons to your own unique situation and talents. So for the surfing violinist, I'm starting with music and surfing. It's fitting considering my online persona. Surfing may seem like an incidental thing, but it is integral to who I am. I'm not trying to convert you to becoming a surfer, but I'm trying to inspire you to find some beauty, adventure, and fitness in nature that fills you with a bit of apprehension and wonder. And I also want you to see my progress and witness how an ungainly and uncoordinated oaf of a man can course correct in midlife and become more agile and dexterous in a physically demanding activity. My goal for surfing for the foreseeable future is to perform my first aerial maneuver. It's a skateboarding-inspired trick that has the surfer launch from the top of the wave into the air and land on the wave or in front of the wave without falling, breaking his board, or breaking his face. When I first became enamored with surfing, I imagined it as a manly man sport requiring bravery and strength. When you see these guys perform a turn on a surfboard, you will notice them throw a huge amount of spray up into the air, a human-generated cloud of whitewater. It's impressive. But after a while, you realize that, like everything, surfing is an art of poise, control, dexterity, and acrobatic agility. It is more dance than bombast. Surfers are water dancers, and just like Arya in Game of Thrones, they must learn to possess their bodies and their respective instrument with control and poise. Bruce Lee said you must be shapeless, formless, like water. When you pour water in a cup, it becomes the cup. When you pour water in a bottle, it becomes the bottle. When you pour water in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Water can drip, and it can crash. Become like water, my friend. This is great wisdom in any area of life, but nowhere is it more true than in water sports. Hopefully, through my meditations on surfing, you can be inspired in the same way guys like Bruce Lee have inspired the world through the martial arts. And then there's music. I've played the violin since I was 7 years old. It's a huge part of who I am. I've largely squandered my gift, buried my talent. Now I'm hell-bent on making this instrument and my love of music serve a purpose larger than the pastime, recreational dead end they have served so far. My first goal with violin and music is to make an album that I'd be willing to buy. I've been a die-hard fan of Radiohead for the past 10 years, but after seeing an interview with Tom York and watching that god-awful Anima music video on Netflix, I realized my hero is just another dude with feet of clay. If he can do it, I can do it. Radiohead's music has always been a kind of circle-jerk expression session about disconnectedness and isolation in an overly connected world. I'm ready to make music that expresses not just resigned nihilistic angst, but dynamic rage and unbridled beauty. It's going to be a mess. I still suck, but I'm tired of waiting. I want you to see my progress from cringy open mic musician to a better musician than Tom York. And if I can make that transformation happen, then hopefully you will be able to make parallel transformations in your respective fields of action and inquiry. I don't know what the end game is yet, but we got to start somewhere, and since I am the surfing violinist, surfing and violin are just the most obvious places for me to optimize, because no matter what I do, I just can't seem to outrun these two defining passions of my life. Start small. Pick 2 goals today along with me. You may have to drop them, you may have to postpone them, but pick 2 as an exercise, as an experiment today. For me, I'm going to do an aerial maneuver on a surfboard. But Ford, you're 38 years old! Well, Kelly Slater is 47, and he is still competing in pro surfing contests even after breaking his foot in 2017 while competing at my dream wave, Jeffreys Bay in South Africa, where the World Tour is currently. I'm going to get there, and an aerial is my first step. For music, my first goal is a solo album released on the internet that 200 people buy. What are your goals? Let's do this. Why wait? There's not enough time left. Cue intro music and stuff, but I don't have it ready, so. Imagine this music and my weird amalgamation of all these cinema quotes and stuff. You read too fast, bro. More pauses, please. Yeah, it's mild, man. I can't stop. I just can't stop. I woke up this morning and I saw a panther in my room. And he was like, just out of eyesight. I've really discovered that I trip multiple times a week. Like, I've heard that your mind when you're dreaming is like a DMT trip. But for years, I haven't realized this, but for years I've been waking up and I'll have these crazy, like these essays basically come from what I dream a lot of times. Some music I've written has come from what I dream. And the other night it happened to me the weirdest way I've ever had it happen, where, you know, those like, you know, it's like the LSD trip looking patterns that happen or whatever. That they, you know, like it looks real like hippie 70s or whatever. I had this waking dream the other day with PVC pipes. It was all PVC pipes and they were curved like, you know, around a corner. And then they started like hypercubing. They started transdimensionally like making all these weird, like it almost looked like a tesseract sort of scenario, but it was all made of PVC pipe. Anyways, I've started like, yeah. So I think Jung, you know, talks a lot about how dreams are you got to dive into them. And so most of my weird meditations come from most of the time I can't remember them. And so I scramble to try to write some of this stuff down. But it just, yeah, subconscious has some interesting ways of seeing the world. I think it's pretty important. It's called schizophrenia. Yeah, of course. Why? Okay, go for it. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I had Judah muted. You had some. Judah said a couple things since we just started out talking. There was like dead air there. I'm sorry. Carry on.
I unlocked the secrets of the earth while you had me muted. I don't think I said anything. But so after watching your the podcast last week on the way home, you know, we're driving back. It makes me what I've been thinking about, because when you're talking about like what do we do and we start. You talk about starting and just taking steps, and now you're talking about making goals. And I was trying to remember what was that quote from Sanderson that Mel brought
Oh,
up.
yeah, Melissa brought that up last year. It was
Like, what's your first step or something like how many steps does it take to get started?
right.
Yeah, yeah. How many steps does it take to get started or
A
something like
man is
that?
basically a million steps or something like that. It's like every
Yeah,
step being more important than the last. Like the first one is
right.
just it's not it's immaterial when you think about, but we make such a big deal about those first steps when
Mhm.
really, and you know, JBP has talked about that too. Like maybe you get to the cliff's edge, you're like, I can't keep going here. So that was 500 steps in the wrong direction, but you gain knowledge that, oh, I this is a dead end, so I have to turn around and go back. But we don't like that. You know, we only want forward momentum. We only want
Right.
progress in a certain direction. And the problem is, and that's what Jurassic Park's all about, really, is progress in a direction that seems like progress, but it's actually in the progress of in the direction of hell. You know, it's progress in the direction of hell, and you're just going backwards without even because they're just in such a rush to think whether or not they could. They didn't stop to think if they should.
That's good.
So
That's a good impersonation of Goldblum. But yeah, I lately I've been trying to think about progress. So I've been trying to think about going so in weightlifting and trying to accomplish things that I in the moment I know I can't do, that that existential feeling of like I'm just not going to be able to do this. What I try to do is
mm,
think of like I really believe in imagination to be able to help our bodies do follow through with things.
yeah, okay,
And so I try to envision not just what it would be like to have it accomplished, but what would be like to be in it if it was even harder.
right.
And so like to kind of psych myself up to say like to think imagine it being even harder, and then so the actual task not being as daunting. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually really good. Sometimes I think this is why power structures actually can be useful if you leverage them to teach you things. Like this job has helped me become a better handyman than I've ever been in my life. And most of the times they would tell me to do something. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to suck at this. And I'd get it done. Like I fixed our office's plumbing. I've never done that between the road and the, internal things. I've done like very minimal amount,
Mm,
like replacing a
mhm.
toilet, flush thing or whatever. But like actually from the road, repairing the broken PVC pipe. Speaking of PVC pipe, and
Mm.
actually, and saving the company money because if an actual plumber comes out there, they charge $125 an hour or whatever. So realizing, oh man, I can do this too. These people aren't some like high echelon. I don't know. I mean, not that you necessarily think of a plumber as high echelon, but they have like a special knowledge, right? Like they have a specialty, and
Yeah.
and I've always been daunted by these sort of material, physical, seemingly mundane things. And I'd rather be in front of a computer. I'd rather be writing. I'd rather be doing some intellectual pursuit. And I feel inadequate when
Yeah.
when dealing with real life junk.
Well, and I think that's built into us as guys who've been, through academia. Like in college, white dudes going to college were taught that there are people that are experts and we want to be an expert. Like I think the biggest breakthrough I had when coming out of getting my master's was that I just saw a lot of people. I had a lot of experiences with well-educated people that didn't know what they were doing, you know? And like the more I faked like I knew what I was doing, the
Right.
more people trusted me. And the more education I had, even though I knew I just skated through my education and I learned stuff. But I just realized how little education is about mastering stuff and more about just getting you into the field, like getting you submerged in the information. Because we don't like, how much do you remember from any
Yeah,
of
well,
your
and
classes?
that's why I think school is just an untenable. It's just an outmoded dead end in terms of it was an idealized like we're going to educate children so they don't have to work in factories, and now we've just forced all of our children to go into factories after they get out of school. They're just factories by another name. they're church factories, they're industry factories. And I mean, everything runs like a dilapidated factory. It's like we all live in Detroit, but the factories are all broken. When I finally started making the decision that I think it was the first conversation I had, like I'm with my boss about I'm quitting, and it was more like a 2-month notice, not a 2-week notice. And he kind of tried to talk me out of it a little bit. He's like, but I understand, it was no hard feelings, whatever. So I was driving away, and I realized it was the first time since the hurricane that I looked at this certain corner in our town like I used to see it before I was working. And it's like the whole Matrix metaphor, and we can talk about that just being like middle brow sci-fi. I think the Matrix still holds, because we all in a way are living in this factory that's just a giant human resource allocation project, and it's really hard to see what's pulling the strings in it anymore. And it's not like, some people would blame the Rothschilds or the Federal Reserve. Like, everyone has their own thing that they're going to pen all the blame on to scapegoat. But we're all complicit in this weird thing, which just makes us feel this nihilistic dread. It's just like we're living in a Sartre horror, Camus horror, It just, because I remember how this area looked like to me as a kid. Or even when I worked at another job where I didn't feel quite as like anxious. And I'm just like, I'm in the bowels of a factory here.
Yeah.
And you go back and like, you think about one of those earlier movies, what is that classic movie? Metropolis. Fritz Lang, I think, is the director. Weird movie. You got to go watch that movie. It is weird. It's pre-censorship, so there's like odd nudity in it and stuff. It's like, it's an odd I want to say it's like in the 20s or something like that. But there's a pretty iconic scene where our protagonist is sitting there. He has to do what the factory workers are doing. It's like basically a clock, and he's moving the arms around or whatever. It's a perfect visual of what it feels like to be a human in the innards of the human resource factory. And so we're not down in the bowels of something, but it's worse, because now the bowels have come out into the first world problems. I think in some ways we need to kind of drop that whole thing, the whole first world problems like epithet. Existential dread is worse than physical pain. I'm just going to keep saying that. Existential dread is worse than physical pain. The last 8 months, the physical pain has been the least worrisome part of this job. And I've been working like very hard physical labor. But there's something so like soul crushing about an office space, in office politics, that, man, just put me in the attic and have me suck out insulation for the rest of my life, and I'll listen to podcasts. That's way better than dealing with politics any day of the week.
Yeah. Now, of course, there's the middle ground. There's the pain of loved ones. That's not really existential pain. That's not really physical pain. But like, if there's a certain path I could take that would just be physical pain and probably wouldn't make me any money, but my kids would starve. So there's the, I don't know, the collateral damage.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, like, Gyro had said, it's like we can't afford to be Hulk here and try to break everything, break all the infrastructure. We're just, we're going to revolt tomorrow, and we're going to, whether you're on the communist side, we're going to overthrow capital, or whether you're on like the free market side, we're going to overthrow the Federal Reserve. Like, if you did any one of those, like, as he says, like capsizing strategies to deal with it, everything would go to hell. Nobody would be prepared. You can't expect some malnourished or poorly nourished person, on subsisting on Cheetos and Monster energy drinks to enter the world of physical labor tomorrow and survive, So I was like, I'm not part of this, like we just need this cataclysmic change in order to, make real men of all of us thing. Like, we need a slow, gradual change. We don't need a cataclysm. We don't need a meteor strike. We don't need dinosaurs to come back. We need to slowly migrate or out of this mindset, which is this human resource factory clown world where the factory is our life. and and yeah, so that's kind of, I think that's kind of the whole point of this experiment, is try to find little incremental changes that we can do in different areas of our life, and try to find ways to layer them so that you're getting your family time, your friends time, and your work. It's not all of your work, but certain types of work. Uh, like discourse, like what we're doing right now. I mean, you
Yeah.
used to have to watch Walter Cronkite or 60 Minutes or whatever. Like now random people all over the world are connecting through this medium and making it more constructive and more collaborative and more interactive. And I think that's more in the grand scheme of things, makes you less passive and live a more integrated life.
Yeah, and I think at risk of conjuring the cliche face your fears, there's something in it
Yeah.
about like, so you're the go to hell part of it, I think, is the ability to just say, I don't know what's going to happen. What you're saying, a lot of what you're saying in the monologue is, we don't really know what's going to happen. So let's just like you said, experiment with little things,
Right.
sometimes big things. I mean, you quitting your job, I just quit my job, but doing it, not just doing it willy-nilly, or like you said, like Hulk just breaking things, but doing it within a certain process. Both of us gave long notices,
Right.
we talked to our spouses about it,
Right.
made our case, but still cataclysmic decisions. They could, potentially
Right.
cataclysmic decisions.
And I think it's fine. The term that keeps coming up in my head is pushing patience. And I feel like as dudes, we tend to, I don't know, in the last 50 years especially, we've tend to confuse assertion with aggressiveness. And there's a line there. Sometimes you have to go over into aggressiveness. I almost got in a fight surfing the other day. Everyone's high strung because we haven't surfed in like a month. So we finally get waves, and there's only one spot to surf, like in the whole county. So we're all just like, and get this vortex where the rip current's so hard you have to paddle. So we're just in this circle, and we're all jockeying for waves. Surfing is a weird, like, individualist free market thing. Like, really, it's one dude can surf the wave, and so it requires a lot of assertion, and a lot of diplomacy. So it's this weird thing. And so one guy took away from somebody else. There's a whole hierarchy of rules in terms of who gets right of way and all this stuff.
Okay.
So this one, a guy I know, he's a local musician. I've known him for years. He took a wave. Another guy dropped in on him. We call it snaking. So it's basically he pulled out in front of him. Like you're driving 70 miles an hour and someone pulls out in front of you, like, and you have to slam on your brakes. So my buddy lost his temper, grabbed the guy's leash after he's paddling away, and so they were getting into this yelling altercation. And total forward, I'm like, I don't have time for that. You don't even know the rules of the road. What's your problem doing it? And I just started going off, and the guy got up in his face. I put myself right in the middle of them, and I was like, I turned into something I've never wanted to turn into. So in surfing, they have this term called localism. It's basically you've got these people that police the local break, because they've been sitting there waiting for the swell, and you got all these other people come in who don't surf there normally, and then they take the waves and they don't follow the rules of the road, and so it creates this huge tension. Well, it turns out the guy is local. He's just a little newer surfing, and so finally, a little bit later, after we'd all calmed down a little bit, I saw my buddy go up and paddle to him. They kind of exchanged a few words, looked like it was okay, and I felt pretty bad. So I went up to the guy, I was like, "Look, man, I'm high strung. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have got it like that." But we dealt with it, and it was kind of funny. A few minutes later, I went to paddle over a wave, and a wave hit me, and I landed right on top of him. And I looked at, I actually have it on video. Still the GoPro. We're like, hey, sorry, man. He's like, oh, you okay? Like, yeah. So it's like sometimes as dudes, we have to just get that aggression out. And like you've said before, we don't have good ways to get it out in society. It's like we need more boxing, we need more jiu-jitsu, we need more wrestling, we need more MMA. Like we really do. We really need something to get it out, because and it seems like wasted energy, but there is this aggression that if we don't learn to properly channel it or redirect it, that you can use that anger to be more like a nuclear powerhouse instead of a nuclear bomb blast. You know, you can use it to create some energy. And I think, like you said, it's like we don't have that experience being assertive because we're afraid of the risk. You know.
Well, and there's magical spirituality in that denouement after the crescendo.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
There is something there.
Yeah.
That you can't even get from sex, you know, like like afterwards, like that kind of like connection with another guy after really blowing up and saying, and but yet being able to come back as a man and say, I was wrong, man. Come on, there's something really magical in that moment.
Right. And well, you know, it's like, it is kind of like the difference between porn and like the best movies you've ever seen. Like there is an actual denouement to the post climax.
Yes.
You know, that actually has meaning. Like something has actually been, a new path has been elucidated that wasn't there. Whereas with everything else, with mere consumption, whether it be sex is consumption, drugs is consumption, whatever it is, like it's just a hangover. There's nothing new gained. And I feel like we live in a hangover culture. It's just where we're all just encouraged to just glug, 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 glug. So there's just no outlet. There's no growth. Yeah. And a lot of times when there is growth, like you think about it in the economic sense, a lot of times when there's growth, it's like cancerous growth. It's not good kind of growth. It's not pruned growth. You know, you don't want just this jungle just to take over all of civilization. You want to make a garden. You know, you want to make a farm. So
Constructive.
Yes, you want to use this stuff. It's like, you know, whenever we have this sort of like Luddite, like, oh, everything's, oh man, modern civilization, technology, oh, it screwed us all up. It's just so dumb. Like, it's so dumb. They didn't, you know, yeah, okay. The thing that I think of all the time is Avatar. Just how stupid that movie is. It's like one of the most technologically sophisticated movies of all time, which is admonishing us all to just live in the forest, you know, without building anything. Look, technology is so terrible, but also look at this great computer graphics. It's just inane, dude. Hypocritical stupidity.
Yeah, it's true. It's the
Fox Pixar is now hosting. Thank you, Fox Pixar.
I don't know what those words mean.
On Twitch, he's hosting the channel on Twitch. So we've upped our Twitch viewership from 1 to 2. Woo!
Doubled our viewership.
Yeah. I quit my job for a reason. I knew it. I quit my job for a reason. I'm here to stay, baby.
Well, hey, we appreciate you, Fox.
No. Hey, yeah, definitely. I actually got a Twitch payout yesterday. The first time I've seen that in, I don't know, like 2 years. I guess I think they have a payout threshold or something, so I was probably just at the threshold, and then we had that wave of subscribers thanks to our very beneficent Indian friend. So yeah, what other thoughts you got there regarding the... Oh, and I named this essay. Okay, I didn't even put this in the essay, and this was supposed to... So this was one of my other morning thoughts. I called this essay The Runway, and the idea being, with planes, we don't take off from like a Harrier jet. You know, you don't just go and go. It's moving from 0 speed along the ground, and you pick up speed before you take flight. And I think far too often, whether it be in the Jurassic Park scenario, entrepreneurship, religion, politics, everyone just wants this magic, like, ding, we are a Harrier jet. Here we go. Yeah. We're gonna initiate the Green New Deal, and tomorrow all carbon emissions will be erased. I mean, that's another hulkish stupidity. You know, that's just like a magic belief in the world. And I'm guilty of that on the other side, where I'm just like, let's break the Federal Reserve. Let's get back on the gold standard, or Bitcoin's going to save everything. It's just, it cannot happen overnight. These things have to be gradual. They have to be gradual. You have to have a runway.
You do. And we live in a world of immediate gratification. We live in the YouTube star world, where you look on TV and you see some guy get viral, you know, like viral.
Yeah, it's true.
A viral video has broken something in our heads, where we believe that we can get rich by coincidence with,
it's the lottery, the virality thing about it. It's we shouldn't be praising virality. And Well, it's actually a bad definition if you think about virality, because it is a very
Right.
procedural thing. It's not really viral the way it is. It's almost like instantaneous push button.
Yeah.
You know, like, did you
Yeah.
see the Bagel Man fight that happened in that bagel shop?
I heard about it.
Well, it's. I mean, both like the girls that filmed it and him have been, I mean, catapulted in minutes into superstardom. Because a dude acted like me and just I mean, when I lose my shit for real, I look just like that dude. It makes no sense what I'm saying. To me, like I totally resonated with the short man. Even though I'm not like an incel, you know, but it's just I resonate with, because I've had that same moment so many times at work where it's just like, you're not listening to me. And then you start saying stuff that makes no sense in context of the situation. I just wanted a bagel. Yeah, and you just wanted to become a superstar by making fun of a small person. I thought that was like not politically correct. I don't know, whatever. But it's forfeit. You know, he had a mental breakdown. He's a white dude, so we can do it now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so my family and I, we've been watching it Alone. Have you heard of Alone?
I have not heard of Alone.
Oh man, you got to tune in.
What is
It's you remember Naked and Alone, or Naked and
Naked
Afraid?
and
Or whatever?
Afraid. Yeah, yeah.
It's just like that, except it's not stupid. It's
You know, there's a YouTube celebrity that made it on that show.
Really?
He was yeah, SMP Films.
Okay.
He was an early YouTuber, and then YouTube just changed, and he became a vlogger, and he ended up on that show at one point. Yeah, that's the only
Okay.
reason I know it. Anyway, so Alone.
So Alone is like that, except they're not naked and they're not stupid. They're a lot of them want to be, or are training to be, survivalists or teach survivalism, and so they
Okay.
put them out in the forest of Vancouver, and whoever makes it the longest wins, gets $500,000.
Oh,
And what typically gets to them, what the thing that takes like half of them out, is the boredom and loneliness, is the lack of connection. Because, and Chana pointed this out yesterday, my wife pointed that out, that the ones that are really industrious and have like a project, at first I was like, oh, that guy's gonna win because like, he's got a project, he's got something that's like engaging him mentally. Like, those are the guys that go fast, because
interesting.
they don't go fast. They get to the like the second tier,
But
you know.
they hit the wall.
They hit the wall, and then they talk a lot about, there's nothing stimulating me mentally. I don't care, why am I here? And I keep saying, like, $500,000 is right there.
But yeah, it's true. You can't see past that fog, you know. And it reminds me of what Gyro's whole thing last week. You really need that incremental approach, and in a way, it's like the ambitious person needs to be a little bit lazy, I think. Because what ends up happening is, when you're ambitious, you take on everything. And you look at Jurassic Park. John Hammond is extremely ambitious, but the ambition clouds his judgment and clouds his long-term view, you know. And if like one of the best investors we have, if we're looking at our current system in terms of finances, one of our best investors that has risen to the top is Warren Buffett. And you read Buffett and Munger, and it's so simple. It's so stupidly simple. They wait. They do not buy. They do not diversify. They wait until the market drops out. They keep their eye on 10 or 20 companies they really think are good, and they just wait. And when everything tanks, they buy everything. They put all in on that one company, and it's something that they know is just reliable, right? Yeah. And they tell everyone, this is what we do, and everyone's like, oh yeah, we'll do that. But that FOMO, man, that FOMO is so powerful. That fear of missing out. You just like, oh, Bitcoin's at 13,000. It's going to be 100K tomorrow, and then you buy, and then it takes again. So you just cannot. You cannot have a red ocean strategy when you're trying to be assertive and make slow change over time. We really have to get back into a gradualism that is not surprised by punctuated equilibrium. That's the way I'm trying to think about it. Like a slow, methodical, procedural way of being assertive, the pushing patience, but the key being why I'm using that word kismet. When fate knocks on your door and the opportunity presents itself, it's you lose yourself in the music at the moment. Better never let it go. You only get one shot. Do not let this chance to go. Your opportunity comes once in a lifetime. When that opportunity does come, though, you're prepared and you can say no or yes. Like you're not. It's not like Eminem says. It's not like you're putting everything in on this flight of fancy. And that's what separates Munger's moment and Warren Buffett's moment from that popular sentiment of don't miss your moment. Like you're prepared.
Like we said before, it all comes down to this moment, but it's not that serious. What we talked about before.
Yeah.
Like you can't make it that serious because it isn't. If you you got to be able to say yes or no.
Yes, you have to be strong enough to be able to say no and walk away. And I just keep thinking, I think of things in terms of surfing. So I'm looking at this, I just keep thinking about Felipe Toledo, who's a Brazilian surfer, and he's just so dynamic. He's just so fun to watch for a surfer. He's like water dancer par excellence. He's so agile. He's so acrobatic. And one of his surfing moments that defined his career, he was young. You see him paddle out, and there's just an energy about him, and it's like the waves. It was almost like there are those people, and they could be religious zealots or snake oil salesmen, but that like the power of positive thinking or whatever. But you see some of these champions in surfing, and they almost have that kind of thing, where it's just like they almost will the waves. Like they paddle for this little tiny wave, and everyone else let it go, and then all of a sudden, like it just works perfect. Like everything, the planets come into alignment in this thing, and so it's like you have to be available to success. It's like you and this. I think what you're talking about, like that pessimistic, like existential, this is not going to work, and that's where we have to use our imagination and say, well, maybe this wave will turn out, maybe this little thing is going to work out. But you have to be balanced and prepared for those moments, and you have to be ready for fate, for chaos theory to work in your favor, because you'll miss it otherwise. You'll just see it like not as an opportunity at all.
And that's why I like some of these guys that talk about they don't like Christianity, they don't like religion, but they talk about the universe and how the universe favors the journeyman and stuff like that. Like I think there's something important there in seeing God as the universe, is seeing God as a force that, what we got? Do we get a donation?
Yes. Harsh Joshi, thank you for the donation, $20 on Twitch. Mucho apreciado. Thank you.
But so it's important, I think, to see God as more than just sugar daddy, obviously,
right?
But as somebody but as a force that is moving in a direction, and that the journeyman can, it favors the journeyman, right? The universe favors the journeyman, but by the same token, you want to look for where it's moving. You want to be susceptible.
You got to be. Go.
No, I was going to wait. Maybe
circumspect.
Circumspect,
seeing like the whole, taking everything into account as much as you can. I mean, no human, and this is why we need each other. And this is the thing why we get into these stupid ruts, is because we think we've arrived. We have some measure of success, and then we're like, I'm an island. I've got my ghetto, and here it is. And I'm not going to trade with anyone else outside of this because all of y'all are idiots. But then the problem is it becomes ingrown, and it begins to, your own community or your own city that you create ends up taking on all the negative aspects of your character, and those metastasize and grow into something. I mean, it's just, we've got all these different versions of mutant, xenomorph aliens running around thinking that they have figured out the secret of all things. So that's why we need to have boundaries between communities, but with open trade. And willingness to, we need city walls, so to speak, but we need to have those permeable.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, the way I was talking to my brother about Trump's wall, and because I was talking to my kids about the importance, because I said, well, do you think we should just let anybody in? Like not care who comes in? And they're like, oh no, no, like what if they have a disease or something? But so what I came up with was like, I think we need a really big door and a really strong wall. Like
right.
it's not enough just to have a wall. You have to have a really big inviting door.
And I think this is hard for people like on the left to hear when we talk about walls. But here's the thing: this is happening actively in India with cultures just disappearing because they're being subsumed by the Borg collective of modern pop culture, where the soft power of popularity ends up just eradicating entire cultures that may actually still have something to tell us. And the more, and that was what the Renaissance and the Reformation were back to the sources, where they went back and discovered all this great stuff in Roman and Greek culture that was like, whoa, we didn't even know about this. The Dark Ages all of a sudden comes into this just monumental punctuated equilibrium of all kinds of new inventions and ways of seeing the world, and philosophy takes flight again. You want to preserve good things from the past, and soft power can just crush them. And so if you don't have a border between ideology, if you don't have a border between cultures, then it just all conglomerates in this ooze, in this blob. And there is no definition. There is no style. There is no substance. There is no nothing. It's just this mass, And so, but on the other hand, on the more, let's say, conservative side of things, you don't want to become so intransigent and unwilling to change. And I guess that's why I've had trouble within traditional structures. Why I just can't hang around Christians in church settings anymore. Like I feel like everything's just perfunctory. It doesn't feel dynamic. Like the conversations I have online with people that are very different from me are just very much more invigorating. They light a fire under my butt just to actually do something different and new.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that idea. I love this idea of factories, that you brought up. Um, church is a factory. School is a factory. All these like factories where you remember you ever read Calvin and Hobbes?
Yes.
Remember where so he has the pictures of how he's envisioning going to school, coming home, doing where he's like I think he's walking with a herd of cows, and he walks away. There is an aspect to where we get this factory mentality, and we just put the widget on the edge, move it along. But by the same token, I think there's something to be said about the factory aspect of it.
Absolutely. And I am not a Luddite. Like I think we have to take the things that have come before us and conserve them in their proper place. My problem is when you take a strategy and make it normative for all of existence. Like I am not really sure. I think the industrialization of food production and distribution, for instance, has been something that was like a necessary step. But I think we're realizing the limitations of it. And it would be really great if we could all learn to become farmers again. Everyone's talking about automation is going to take away jobs. Well, then maybe we could farm in some of our time, and we don't have to. That way, we don't have to depend on other people. We can actually. Some new strategies are going to have to be made because overpopulation is going to become an issue. Whether you're climate change against that whole thing, or population boom. That was one of the big sky is falling things for a long time there. But I mean, at a certain point, we are going to have to find ways to be more conservative in our consumption. And that's not just a leftist trope. I mean, it's just a responsible stewardship trope. Yeah. It's just a part of being a human being is keeping short accounts and actually being responsible with what you have, and not just trying to trash everything and just consume everything. And there's just so much of that on left and right that we say one thing, but we do another. We're just all consumers, and we're just shitting all over everything, like ideological shit and consumption shit. And we just got stuff pouring out of our ears,
Well, but I think it was what's his name? Picasso. Picasso, I think he said learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist.
Mm.
To me, that's a variation of your find the noise in the signal. Because
Yeah.
like, I think there's an aspect like
Yeah.
learn the factory rules so that you can find the noise, you know,
Right.
or so
Okay.
you find, I'm sorry, so you can find the
Man,
signal in the noise,
that's
you know.
good. Well, my first blog foray was years ago, and it was called Destructive Interference. And destructive interference is basically noise cancellation. And so my attempt with my blog was to be like a third path between the polarities on the internet, and to take the noise out of the picture, all the political framing, all the hot button like short-sightedness, and say, okay, well, what is the bigger picture here? Is there something we can take from both sides? And I think with our art, if we can find ways to be more poetic with it, and you think about what poetry is, it's the most like what is that term in physics or science where it's like, you know, it's like the neutron star. There's like this, it's almost like singularity. It's like the space is compressed so much. You know, the mass is just, that's what poetry is in an artistic way. It's like just so much meaning crammed. It's like a hyperlink to this world of meaning. And I think that's why poetry really is the most evolved art form. And then from that, you can get music, which also has so much. It could just through one phrase, you can have so much emotion emotion and meaning imbued into it. And I think that's what we need to do, is to try to find ways to take the noise out, to decode the most meaning and most value from this very new noisy universe we inhabit, and to try to like not add more noise unless, like you said, it's like in a Picasso sense where the noise has a purpose, and it has some beauty embedded in it, you know. Critical mass. Thanks, David. That's it.
Yeah, and it's not just the beauty. I mean, maybe it is beauty. I forget where I was talking about this to somebody, but that, as my dad or something, that truth is beautiful, just because it's truth. And I think there's truth in processes and systems like the factory, you know.
Right.
There
Yes.
is truth in the necessity of it and the rules of it that keep us orderly. It's not just noise, you know. Sometimes the noise is the medium,
Yeah.
you know, and we have to find the details, the signal.
Right. And I've been thinking like about, there's a lot of people in the Twitter circles that I follow that just constantly take a shit on video games. And now they're saying the video games is just a waste of time. It's a consumer. It's just basically another drug. And I think that is a reactionary conservative take that's really not thinking through the value of video games. I think video games outside of poetry and music are the most evolved art form that we have, because they require interaction. I think certain types of music allow for that as well. Poetry does, because it requires the reader or the listener to be familiar with all the potential ranges of meaning. And so, I mean, you really have to be well read and well cultured to unpack, to decode poetry. But that's what video game is in an active way. And some of the best video game moments, we talked about my favorite Chrono Trigger moment, games like Inside or Limbo, there's something that cannot be communicated. I'm convinced there's something that cannot be communicated by any other art form imagined by man. I don't think it's a throwaway thing. I think it is actually. Video games and the internet are really the way we should be trying. The medium is the message, and the message is cooperation, individuation, and participant observation. As a cross-cultural studies person, like that's my background professionally, and I've been working out of field for most of my life. But cross-cultural communication, the main thing, if you want to learn a language, the number one thing is participant observation. You cannot just merely be an observer. And that's what schools are. It's just all observation, and participation is writing a bunch of crap down you're going to forget next week. Not participating. And we've outlawed for kids the best form of participation, which is work, because you can't have child labor. Gonna hurt kids. And now the kids are hurting themselves because they're just living in this factory life, and the existential dread drives them to suicide and the opioid crisis and rampage killings. But yeah, we really care about kids. So participant observation, though, and you get that through video games and you get that through the internet. The two best mediums for participant observation in terms of technology, outside of actually going out and hanging out with real people in real life. But even that has been gamed and co-opted and politicized. It's hard to talk to people face to face anymore, because they have accepted the politically correct rules of their own cultural structure. So, I mean, you can say blame the left all you want for political correctness, but go try and have an honest conversation with someone in the religion of your upbringing. Go try. There are things you can't talk about. You'll say something, and the person will be like, "Oh," and changing the subject. I cannot see or hear that. That's outside of my field of vision. There's no circumspection, And I think we have this tool, man. The internet. We have this tool, video games, and they can be utilized for actual involvement and participant observation, and that's the next level, man. We cannot be like fuddy-duddy, irresponsible, shirking this incredible new technology in the same way people did with the printing press and with video and with film.
Yeah. I believe, though, that there is a missing component. I think there's something primitive about having to learn code. I think that, it's probably wrong, right? But to me, it feels like it hinders growth too much. I feel like there's something in video and game playing, and like you said, video game playing, that the next level is going to be a lot more accessible to everybody.
We almost need some sort of Steve Jobs figure to help simplify the spaghetti code structures, the user interface with these technologies. Because what Jobs did is he took very complicated technologies and make them pretty easy for someone to pick up the first time they pick it up. I mean, you don't have to see an instruction manual on how to use an iPhone. I mean, it's just intuitive. It fits. And you're right. When you start learning to code, the spaghetti, the technological limitations of the time in which the foundation of everything was made, we have never gone back and said, hey, maybe we could do something a little different here. And so there are a lot of people who are trying to find solutions to this, the way the internet is structured. There's some interesting project going. Urbit, I think, is one of them, where they're trying this whole noded approach. But most of it still, for an outsider, is so opaque that it's just it requires like a Harrier jet, the wall. It's like there's no learning curve. It's just this learning wall. So we do need to find a better runway to learn how to work in this crazy information world that we have. But yeah, I think this slow change in small little areas. So for me, coming back to the essay, for me, my goal is to do an air surfing, which seems inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, but that's a lot of human art and human pastimes seem inconsequential. The reason why I come back to surfing is it gets me outside. I smell. I'm in touch with nature, not in some frou-frou way. Like fish are jumping into my chest, and I'm smelling that white water, and I'm getting some of that sun that gives me that vitamin D. And there's just an air of it's fun. It's not just like going into the gym. In my mind, the gym is almost like the factory for non-work. It's just working out, but working out what? You're paying money. They should be paying you. You're working. If I cannot live in a gym. I just can't handle it.
Yeah.
So
are you thinking of that Black Mirror or whatever it's called?
Oh yeah, it is. It's like a dystopia. I haven't seen much of them, but okay. So for me, it's doing an air surfing, and the other is releasing an album. Diggy Bomb said, "Why only 200 people buying an album?" And I'm saying it's a starting point. I don't want my first album. I don't want to try to make it so broad that it hits everyone. I'm trying to make like an album that means something to a version of me that when I heard Radiohead's In Rainbows, I was like, this is the direction I'd like. This is what I want to hear in music. And so I want
Yeah.
to do the same thing. But again, I have different creative ideas and different mode of viewing the world than Radiohead does. So to put my, and start off simple, and eventually the goal would be to branch out from a solo project and do a band that is a cultural turning point. The anti-Beatles, basically, because I think Beatles are baby boom evil.
What?
Yes, you heard me right.
You think the Beatles are evil?
Yes, I think they were an absolute dead end in the history of music.
We're done.
I know. No, hey, no, because I renounced my generation's Beatles, which is Radiohead, and Radiohead followed in the Beatles' footsteps, and both of them were just passive consumer showbiz appropriation of one of the best musical forms of all time, and turning it into this self-congratulatory, masturbatory exercise.
Yeah,
I don't like them.
Yeah, my dad had the same. My dad raised me on the Beatles, and he had the same complaint for like some of my favorite music he hates because he says it's overproduced. He can't stand hearing like these guys who he loves so much, and when they first started like dubbing their own voice over their own voice. He just like all these little technological things they
Right.
started doing and
Yeah.
overproducing. He can't stand like the White Album. He hates it. So so those are your two goals.
Yeah. So do you have some
My
goal, one or two, or
I have one.
okay?
I can think of a second one, but I had a couple beers at this new brewery called the Scallywags, and they had people's art on the wall, and I said, yeah, I got a bunch of I got a bunch of pirate paintings. Could I put them up here? And I only have like two. And so he's like, yeah, like you have like an installation? And it's like, I'd had a couple beers. And I was like, yeah. Installation. In my mind, I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm gonna paint a bunch. So, anyways, back at home with my dad, we were like working on some things. We started at least. He gave me some of the stuff he started. So I have to make a couple paintings. I have
That's
three.
perfect. See, that's fitting in right to what we're talking about here. Yes.
Okay. All right. Good.
Because that's
So I got to paint pirates.
that's serendipitous. Because just this week, I think it was the day before I quit, or a couple days before I quit, I got a message from our local like arts community head. I've known her for years. I mean, she knew me from when I was playing violin with some of the local orchestras and stuff. And out of the blue, this never happened before, to my knowledge. Oh, well, one time I showed a film actually through Bay Arts Alliance. My first short film. Do you remember that Checklist short film I made?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they did actually do a screening of Checklist, and that was, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. No, it was more than that. It was almost a decade. Wow, it's been a long time.
Dude, I still think about that short film.
Hey, well, thank you.
I love it.
That's the ultimate goal. We'll get to there. We're gonna start with surfing violin, but we'll get to the ultimate goal, which is filmmaking. But she contacted me out of the blue the other day. It was like, we got this art exhibition. I think your music might be a good fit, and so that lit the fire under me to do some of my backtracking stuff that I've been doing for videos, and I'll add some violin to it and be able to do some experiment. And since it's art show, I think I can get away with a little bit of weirdness. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. So that's a step in the direction for the album. Maybe I can use some of what I write for that. So yeah, I think some baby steps in the right direction, and taking the risk. Maybe somebody looks at your art and says it's all garbage, and maybe somebody's there and listens to me and like, wow, he doesn't know what the world he's doing. But I think we all learn something from even the errors.
And facing our shadow, going back to Jung, facing the shadow, facing the ultimate, message that we hear, that we're not good enough, that we suck, that nobody wants to see anything we do, like facing that, going into the shadow, maybe instead of going into hell, just going into our shadow.
Yes,
You know.
absolutely. Well, let's hit the chat here, and then we'll close out. Go back through. Sankanil Goswami had said earlier, random quote by Confucius: "Every man has two lives, and the second one begins when he realizes that he has only one." That's that's pretty.
Oh.
This is why I am not like I think ethnocentrism is a dead meme and a dead end. Like quotes like that, you will find stuff like that if you're really searching. You will find stuff that spontaneously spring up all around the globe. You can't read the Tao Te Ching or Confucius and say, "Oh, only truth is Western truth." Like there's some just incredible little nuggets like that. That's good stuff. That'll work. That's one we can apply. Bomb Diggy Bomb Pops complain about how fast I read. Let's see. Seeing PVC pipes might have something to do with your job. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So Gyro said, we have transmogrified into wage slaves of modern soft copies of olden sweat factories. And I agree with that. Like, I think a lot of that, though, comes from a lot of competing forces, some of them well-intentioned. So Marx, when he's in Capital, Marx starts off with this wrong assumption about how we are to categorize value. And he uses the labor theory of value. And I think that us taking that as an idea that's not embedded in capitalism, that you have to pay your workers an hourly rate. That's not embedded in it. And so what I want to experiment with is sharing risk and profits. Because that's the thing. A lot of workers don't want to ever share risk. They want to be paid whether or not the product makes money. They want to be paid whether or not the business is about to go bankrupt. Oh, I'm getting paid for my time. Well, the problem with that, because you are at the teats of hourly wages and you are deferring the risk, then you're just being subsidized. You're subsidizing them and they're subsidizing you. And it's kind of an Ouroboros of negative effects for both sides. Yeah. We all need to start learning to take the risk. That's why I'm going off on my own. And I'm slow. Again, this is a slow change, right? I'm still going to be paid an hourly rate at the new place, but I am having to do more of my own accounting. I am having to pay my own taxes. So I'm trying to get a little bit more personal accountability and personal freedom in equal measure, if that makes sense. Taking the responsibility for the risk, taking the responsibility for the responsibility. And I think that the more that we get into that, we can see where society is going wrong. The more we take it upon ourselves, the more we realize, oh, this wasn't as hard as I thought it was, or oh, this is way harder than I realized. And both of those revelations can be instructive. But I agree, this wage slavery thing is not a good way to live, and it is demoralizing. You can talk about first world problems all day long, but man, the existential dread is painful. Yes, I did quit DRT. Sonny, good to see you. The left hook from the wave crash. Did you see that when I was duck diving and the wave hit me in the head?
Yeah. I was going to ask you, was that when you hit your buddy or the other guy?
No. I don't even remember that. That's the thing. It's water. So, and unless you're getting to there's a certain critical mass. There's a certain critical mass of wave height where it really gets like heavy and scary. We don't really have to worry about that around here. Will says, fight night, I'm in. We really do need to do a little more fighting exercise. Gyro says in the 12th grade, what's that?
We passed over, but who said transmogrify?
Gyro.
That was a nice little, that's a Calvin and Hobbes, isn't it?
Transmogrified? Do they use that term?
Yeah, he builds a transmogrifier.
Oh, well, transmogrifier it's a word. Huh. He's on a roll. He had some real good insights last week. In the 12th grade, there I was doing this annual day play at my school, and during the rehearsals, I used to think I'm a hot shot and the best actor in the world, at least in the school. This is Gyro continuing. And I used to deliver every single of my lines with passion, mostly aggression. So the drama teacher told me that I'm delivering everything in aggression, every dialogue, every expressive is aggression. I'm not asserting anything. That's interesting. And I think that's the same thing with me. It's like all or nothing. And this is why tryhards get made fun of and cringe gets made fun of on the internet, because it's people who have a disproportionate belief and passion in something that they have no actual mechanical facility for. So you see that a lot, like me with League of Legends. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm so good. And it's like, I'm just mashing buttons. You might as well just have a monkey hitting his head across the keyboard. It just happens to be that the other person is just terrible, you know. And you see that happen all the time. Like, I'm just so good. And this is why tryhards and cringe get made fun of so much on the internet, because there is no understanding of nuance. There's no understanding of, like you talk about, like dolce piano, like the loud and soft. It's always like fortissimo, or like you can't hear it. You know, so there is no dynamic change or dynamic range. So Harsh said, "Hey Ford, I can't stay. I just wanted to say hello and show support. I will catch up with the podcast later. Thanks for all the support, Harsh." Guest Chimp 208, if you're still in there, hello. Sorry, we don't really interact till chat till the end of the show. With this current version, we will be doing more interactive streams in the future as time becomes a little more available and I start playing League of Legends again. I'll do more interaction when I'm doing that, but it's still a ways out from that. Kuze Tekinoglu 1 has given me a song to listen to.
What is it?
I don't know, so I'll put that in my reading list. Ian Cassidy had shared something last week. I did listen to some of the talk there. It's really interesting what you're doing, Ian, if you still happen to be here.
What does he do?
So he is a fellow lover of Indian culture, and so he talks a lot about a more interesting approach to the horoscope, which is something I think a lot of Westerners really don't understand. And a lot of people don't really think through how it can apply to a more personal growth thing, instead of like you said, like think of God as a genie. I think a lot of people just look at a horoscope as a genie. And so he really references a lot of old sacred Hindu texts that are overlooked in most of these self-help, miracle pill snake oil salesman dudes that are a dime a dozen here and there. So it was pretty interesting, some of the stuff he was saying there. And
we have our own horoscope here in America.
What's that called? The news?
It's called the Enneagram.
Oh yeah, you're right. Or the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah,
Myers-Briggs.
But I mean, I don't just say that. I don't say that to disparage the Enneagram. I think there is something to be said about, not just that the Enneagram is bad. I'm not saying the Enneagram is bad, but there's something to be found, those good parts of the Enneagram, in stuff like what is it called?
Astrology.
Astrology.
Well, yeah, and I think we need a better way of doing taxonomies when it comes to personality, when it comes to culture, when it comes to history. Like, I'm trying to think of it, like all the taxonomies that have been given about our generation. Like, we're on the end of Generation X, the beginning of millennial, and it's like, we're not millennials. We're too young to be millennials, but we're too old to be Gen X. I'd heard us referred to as Gen Y before, and then millennials would be after us, and then you'd have Zoomers after them. But we need better. Like, none of this stuff really matters in a world in which you can read and access film and access the internet, because you can have a 13-year-old who acts like a 40-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, he dresses up like, I mean, there's that one kid now in Britain who's making his own clothes from back in the. You can be Victorian, and so just. This, I mean, sometimes it can be helpful, but I think people are transcending these really lame attempts at categorization. They're just so lazy. These categorical attempts. We need better taxonomies across the board. Gyra said we need walls with open and inviting gates. Yes, I think that's correct. And you want that. I mean, you want trade to happen. Or else everything just gets boring, You don't. Yeah. Baby stumbles, then baby steps. I like it. Script key. Hey. All right. So to close out today, I'm going to play. Did I play it, the song I did last week? Did I end the show with that? I don't think I did. Okay. No. Well, I'm gonna.
Oh no! Yeah, you did.
I did.
Or well, I don't know. I went and watched it, so maybe I can't remember if you did or not. You're talking about the one you did for the horror movie?
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually didn't see the end because I just when you started mentioning it, I just went over to that video.
I'm pretty sure I didn't. So if I did it, I'm sorry. Everyone's going to be singing it again. But this is a song that's available for iTunes if you want to support the show. This is one way you can support the show by buying my music. Occasionally, if you don't want to do like the monthly contribution, this song will be given to patrons for free. And so check it out. Let me find it. Sorry. And I'm blanking on where I put it. Okay, here it is. Theoretically. Okay, so there's a whole like video essay that predates or that leads up to this, which is some of the most controversial stuff I've written. But we're just gonna watch the video to close us out here. I hope you enjoy. And I'm not able to see it. Hold on. Okay. All right. Godspeed, everyone. Enjoy.
Godspeed.
We'll see you next. The pressure will be released in the form of unwilling human sacrifices. Modern man, your hypocrisy is showing.
It's okay, it's all fine. The devil in the dark is only in my mind. It's all fun, eat the young. The morning show is the light of the sun. Not on the stairs, sit on the hill. In Jesus' name, just take this pill. Song up asleep, don't go too deep. You might drown, will pray your soul to keep. Hymns of praise to the fountain of youth. Cover your skin, the world's a photo booth. There's no lost, you're already found. Don't float away, keep your feet on the ground. By midday in the middle of the night, the witching hour will take your side. A bright midday in the middle of the night, the witching hour will steal your side. Bright midday in the middle of the night, the witching hour will take your side. A bright midday in the middle of the night, the witching hour will steal your side.